Hi, this is Karen White of Divine Time Astrology, and I thought it would be fun to do a video on writer Stephen King because of the show Castle Rock, airing now on Hulu. The first season is actually over, but it's vintage Stephen King, and so far without the usual gore that's typical in horror shows. Castle Rock doesn't come from any one of Stephen's stories directly, but it is the setting for several of his novels, novellas, and short stories. First, we'll see how the writing yoga shows up in his birth chart. So his Makaraka, which is his essence planet, the Sun, as seen here. These are the Charakarakas, meaning they show which planets are responsible for producing a particular person in your life, including yourself. So his Makaraka is the Sun, and it's in the third house, 1, 2, 3, of writing. It's aspected by the moon, because the dual signs, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, and Gemini, all aspect each other. So it's aspected by the moon, the most important planet for authorship according to the ancient Jaimini sutras, and the moon is ruled by Jupiter, one of the 3 planets that the moon has to be aspected by, with, or ruled by for a person to be a writer. Next, we need to connect his Makaraka Sun and or the moon to the 3rd house of writing itself, the 5th house of creativity, and the 9th house of teaching and telling tales. His AK Sun in Virgo is already in the 3rd house of writing and ruled by Mercury, the natural planet of writing, in addition to the moon. And the 5th house of creativity is in the sign of Scorpio, ruled by Mars. We look at Mars here, and it's in Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. And the moon aspects the Makaraka Sun. Now remember, with this technique, we can take a planet through 2 signs only in order to connect it with the relevant planet. Now the 9th house is in Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is in Scorpio in the 5th house, ruled by Mars. So again, Mars is governed by the moon, which is aspecting the Sun Makaraka in the 3rd. Plus, being that they're dual signs, they both aspect the 9th house of teaching and telling tales. Mars, the 5th house lord of creativity, is right in his 1st house, showing that creativity is an essential part of his nature. Jupiter, the 9th lord of teaching, telling tales, is also aspecting the 1st house, aspecting its exaltation sign, giving it manifesting strength. Because remember, in the Jaimini technique, the fixed signs, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Taurus, and Leo, aspect the movable cardinal signs of Libra, Capricorn, Aries, and Cancer, and vice versa. Stephen also writes science fiction novels too, not just horror. Rahu, the north node of the moon, is the planet that rules innovation, technology, magic, and the far future. And we can see here that Rahu in a fixed sign is aspecting the ascendant in a movable sign. So everyone always wants to know, why does Stephen write about horror so much? And how does he keep coming up with such horrible ideas to write about? That can be seen here in the D9, or the Navamsha, where his Makaraka Sun is again in the sign of Virgo, and with his enemy Saturn. The Sun and Saturn are enemies. Saturn rules death, disease, aging, and our fears. It's a challenging thing to have Saturn with the Sun. Stephen used his creativity and writing skill to express the worries, the fears, the terrors that we all have, and we're still fascinated by what he comes up with. His father abandoned the family when he was really young, and he was terrified that his mother would leave him and his brother too. During his childhood, he had many nightmares, and he started writing down his scary thoughts to cope with his terrors. Writing them down made it easier to believe they couldn't happen in real life. Stephen says, from a very early age, I wanted to be scared. I wanted an emotional engagement with something that was safe, something I could pull back from. Now, Rahu in the main birth chart, aspecting the ascendant, is also our fears, but strange unknown worries. Unlike Saturn, which usually represents known fears, things that can actually happen in real life, the fears of Rahu can involve the supernatural. Another fascinating thing is that he has a Graha Malika yoga, or planetary garland yoga, which is when all the 9 planets are consecutively in 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 houses from the first house or from the Sun. And here we see, starting from the first house, he has all of his planets in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 signs consecutively. This yoga is considered to be a fortunate yoga, and he is world famous for his writing, especially so because many of his books have been made into movies or TV shows. He's 70 years old now, and he's in his Rahu moon time period. He just went into it in May, and it makes me wonder what he's going to come up with next. Because Rahu in Taurus is considered to be a good sign to have it in. And then the moon, as we know, is the writing planet, and it also happens to be his ascendant lord too. Now the moon is in the 6th house. The 6th house is enemies, overcoming obstacles, health. Mostly it's overcoming obstacles. It's one of the difficult houses. So, just like he's been doing his whole life, he will use writing to work his way through any 6th house difficulties. So this has been Karen White of Divine Time Astrology. And if you're wondering if you could be a writer, if you are interested in horror or science fiction, if your birth chart would show that, well, just contact me, Karen at divinetimeastrology.com, and find out. Until next time, good night.